So Breitling's just done a major update to the Superocean Heritage range. There's new case sizes, there's a slimmer case, there's new colours, and there's also a new movement. Interestingly, the watch that I was least interested in getting hands-on with within this range has actually stood out to be kind of the front runner. I wouldn't have it within my collection, but I really like it. I have all the new sizes of watches of the Breitling Superocean Heritage range. There's quite a few versions here, so let's check them out and see what's actually been updated. We're going to start off with the smallest because this is the odd one out within this lineup. It has a different movement from all the other watches. All the other watches have exactly the same movement. This is the 36mm Breitling Superocean Heritage in green. And I specifically asked for this green because I think it's fun. It's a fun little size of a watch and the color kind of goes along with that. And I also asked for it on the bracelet because I feel like that just suits the package even more. The Milanese bracelet design kind of adds to the jewelry element. It's all sparkly and just feels a little more fancy than a rubber strap. The case is stainless steel, as the name suggests. It's 36mm wide. It's 10.42mm thick. It's got a lug-to-lug measurement of 42.84mm and it has 18mm lugs. It has a screw-down crown and a massive 200 meters of water resistance. It has a unidirectional dive bezel and it has a ceramic dive bezel insert. The movement side is, as I say, different from all the others. This is called the Breitling Caliber 10. However, it's actually a Sleater or ETA powered movement. It's automatic, has bidirectional winding, 21 joules inside, and has 42 hours of power reserve. This is a cost certified movement. The price is £4,400 on the rubber strap or £4,650 on the stainless steel bracelet. Now I'm just going to bash through the specs on all of these watches and then we'll kind of cover off the updates and thoughts later on. The next size that we have is actually 40mm, quite a big jump from 36 to 40. This is 40mm wide stainless steel case, 11.73mm thick. The lug-to-lug measurement is 48.2mm, has 20mm lugs on this one. Still has a screw-down crown. I'm not going to say this part anymore. All the other watches have screw-down crowns, 200 meters of water resistance, dive bezels, ceramic bezel inserts. Just copy and paste for everything else. Next up, we have the 42mm in blue. As you can guess, 42mm wide, 12.03mm thick, which is significantly thinner than the previous version. This one has a lug-to-lug measurement of 49.55mm, and the rest of the specifications are exactly the same as previous. Next up, we have the largest watch within this lineup. This is in the dark green on a rubber strap, 44mm wide case, 12.17mm thick, 52.44mm lug to lug, and this one has 22mm lugs. Interestingly, the prices have been exactly the same for the 40, 42 and 44mm. £5,200 on a rubber strap or £5,400 on the stainless steel bracelet. Now the movement side is, as I said, exactly the same in all of the larger watches, so the 40, 42 and 44mm. It was launched alongside the update of the top time previously this year. This is the Breitling Manufacture Caliber 31. It's an automatic movement with bi-directional winding. This version has 26 joules inside, beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour. It has a free sprung balance wheel, a massive 78 hours of power reserve, and is cost certified. Now typically when I go through the specs of the watches, this is when I insert an advert for the watch straps that I sell over at barkandjack.com. However, Breitling gave me strict instructions to not mess around with these watches and I needed to look after them. They didn't want me to scratch them up, so I haven't changed the straps. So here are a whole lot of watches which look pretty sick on our straps. Maybe a little montage with some music. You can get these straps along with sexy mugs and a whole load of merchandise over at barkandjack.com. Now for the updates. Some of them are quite subtle, some of them might not notice at a first glance. So the bracelets have now got contoured end links. It looks like the Milanese bracelet goes all the way up to, well, I guess it does go all the way up to the case, but underneath it has this very nicely contoured end link to it. The rubber straps also have contoured ends to them. It does look good. It's a decent update to have these contoured end links, but I guess I'm not too fussed. I like the vintage look when there's a gap between the end link and the case itself, but again, I like it when it's contoured and it's well fitting. The movement side, as I mentioned, is a new movement. This is the Caliber B31. It was launched previously this year with the top time. However, the big thing around this movement is obviously it's a high performing movement and it's Breitling's new movement. But the big thing for me is that this movement is nearly 2 millimeters thinner than the previous movement that was used within these watches. That's meant that the case can be significantly thinner. The case is over 2 millimeters thinner when looking at the 42 millimeter version now versus the previous 42 millimeter version. On that point, let's talk about the updated case. It's kind of a more compact case, not necessarily the diameter of the case, but the other dimensions around the case. If we focus on the 42 millimeter case, for example, the previous version had a lug-to-lug measurement of 51.8 millimeters. The new version has a lug-to-lug measurement of 49.55 millimeters. Now, the significance of the lug-to-lug measurement is kind of more meaningful when thinking about whether a watch will actually suit your wrist, because the diameter of a watch is unlikely to be wider than the actual wrist itself. And so it's to do with the lugs, it's to do with the height of the watch and how that sits on your wrist and whether it's going to overhang your wrist. For example, a 42 millimeter wide watch sounds quite large, but if it's got a compact lug-to-lug measurement, then it's going to be very wearable. But the other impressive part, as mentioned with this slimmer movement, is the previous 42 millimeter version of the Superocean was 14.35 millimeters thick. The new version is 12.03 millimeters thick. That's a massive improvement on the thickness. Another cool update is that all the watches that have the B31 movement in have display case specs showing off the movement, and it is nicely finished, certainly for the price point that this is coming in at. You can see that free sprung balance on that nice balance cock, and then you have the Geneva stripes going throughout the movement. For a mass-produced movement, sub £10,000, this is a good-looking movement, and it has specifications to back it up. It isn't just pretty, it's a high-performing movement, being cost certified and having 78 hours of power reserve. The other update, of course, is then the sizes. They've now deleted the massive 46mm version that they had before, and they've got the 36mm, 40mm, 42mm, and then the 44mm size watches. Now, Breitling is kind of known for their large watches, so it's good to see them getting with the times by deleting that 46mm wide watch. But I also like the fact that they've, I guess, kind of kept with that idea of them doing large watches, big chunky watches with the 44mm version, but they've also focused on making them wearable. My wrists are 16.5 centimeters or 6.5 inches. And although the 44mm is too large for my taste, for what I personally want in a watch, it is technically wearable. The lugs don't overhang my wrist. Interestingly, the 40mm I think wears smaller than a typical 40mm watch. Now, this could be simply because it has a large bezel. A large ceramic insert within the stainless steel surround of the bezel itself. That then makes the watch wear small. I believe that the dial and crystal is kind of the thing that influences how large a watch feels or looks on the wrist. For example, if you take a watch that typically doesn't really have a bezel to it, a 40mm pilot's watch will appear larger than a 40mm dive watch that has a rotating bezel around the outside and a smaller dial in the middle. So the 40mm version I feel wears smaller than 40. The 42mm I feel wears more like a 40. For what I want from a dive watch, the 42mm version I feel suits my needs and my taste, but it's going to be one of those things that you just have to try these watches on and see which one feels right. The thing that stood out to me as being interesting is how much this tiny green dive watch caught my eye. It is dainty, but it's kind of a beefy dainty. It's got a lot of wrist presence, despite having an 18mm wide strap. Now, Breitling, I don't feel have particularly marketed this as a female watch. If it is, then it's kind of a cool one. They haven't made it overly feminine. I guess the green is, no, it's just a pale green. I really like it. It's really stood out to me as being something quite cool. And it's interesting how Tudor have done the Black Bay 54 as a small dive watch, and that's kind of taken a lot of people's eyes. I feel like this could be the same thing for Breitling. Again, being an interesting thing coming from a brand that's known for doing big watches, they've absolutely nailed this tiny, dainty diver. It is too small for my collection and what I want from a dive watch. The thing that I'd go for is the 42mm. Well, I guess this is a request. You should do the 42mm or 40mm in this washed out baby green. Love the bezel color, love the dial color. This just needs to be in a slightly bigger watch. For me, that would be the perfect one. Guys, I want to know your thoughts on the updates to the new Breitling Superocean Heritage range. My gut feeling was, before the previous video, was that there's too much choice around sizes. However, I made a comment in my previous video around the Tudor Black Bays that the Black Bay 68 wasn't necessary at 43mm wide. It's just too big. Got loads of comments from people saying, No, it's not too big, it fits my wrist perfectly. So there's obviously a market for larger watches, and I guess now I should no longer think that there's too much choice around sizes. It's just Breitling catering for different wrist sizes, which makes a lot of sense, really. Anyway, guys, all know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of the updates, color options, and what you think about this possible trend of really small dive watches. Black Bay 54 and this really good looking, really sexy Breitling Superocean 36mm. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you like the style of this video, then hit the subscribe button down there and that little bell icon so you get notifications when I drop a new video. If you want to check out watch straps and watch accessories, jump over to barkandjack.com. And if you're on Instagram, give me a follow at barkandjack. I'll see you guys soon. Take care.